Hola!
Hello.
Hello!
Welcome back.
It's-
Welcome in if this is your first episode.
I hope it's not. You really should start from the beginning
Yeah, I
to see
would
how far
go-
we've come.
Yeah. But if you don't feel like that and you say, fuck those first episodes, I don't want to listen to that shit, then
That's fine too.
that's fine too. Stick around. It's all a shit show.
It really
But-
is. And you know, we really haven't figured out what we're doing here.
No.
But we're getting there.
Yeah.
And we're just here to have a good time.
Yeah.
It really ain't got to be nothing.
We're just here for vibes and vibe checks. And yeah.
I'm here for it.
So this week, we are bringing you the Salem Witch Trials
Because they started in February
of 16... Yeah, 16...
92.
Yes. Yes. All right.
I'm just here to tell you, whenever we decided this is what we were doing, I got real fucking excited, and this is going to be, we'll do this episode, but we will come back. We will circle back around because there's a lot to unravel here.
Yeah. All right. Bridget Bishop, Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Wilds, Reverend George Burroughs, Martha Carrier, George Jacobs, John Proctor, John Willard, Martha Corey, Giles Corey, Mary Easty, Alice Parker, Mary Parker, Anne Puditor, Wilmot Red, Margaret Scott, and Samuel Wardell. These are the names of those who were executed during the Salem Witch Trials. I just wanted to start with their names so that even though there is a plethora of information out there about the Salem Witch Trials, saying them helps to keep their names from falling through the cracks of history. Beginning in early 1692 to mid 1693, which it wasn't a very long window of time, the Salem Witch Trials occurred in colonial Massachusetts, with more than 200 people being accused of practicing witchcraft, and 20 individuals being executed, which I named just moments ago. And I'm going to recommend another podcast if you want like a true deep dive into and like the history that led up to the Salem Witch Trials, because we'll really just be scratching the surface because it is a lot of information.
I researched for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And barely touched the surface.
Yeah. So, the last podcast on the left did a series of episodes. It was episodes 500 through 503 on the Salem Witch Trials, and I feel like they really did it justice. Like I re-listened to them in preparation for this, and was listening as I was writing, and making sure that the information that I was giving was as accurate as possible. In 1711, colonial authorities pardoned some of the accused and compensated their families, which I'll get in a little bit more into that as I get towards the end. Since the 17th century, the stories of the trials have become synonymous with paranoia and injustice. Fueled by xenophobia, religious extremism, and long-brewing social tensions, the witch hunt continues to beguile the popular imagination more than 300 years later. From the 1300s to the end of the 1600s, tens of thousands of witches, mostly women, were executed in Europe during a witchcraft craze. The Salem trials took place as that European craze was winding down, and I believe that it was even the Salem witch trials took place after the European witch trials had already ended and the last person was executed. Refugees from King William's War were putting a strain on American colonies, including Salem, which aggravated an existing rivalry between families with ties to the wealth of the port of Salem and those who depended on agriculture. And there was also much controversy around the first ordained minister of Salem Village, Reverend Samuel Parris, who took over the church in 1689 and quickly gained a reputation for his rigid ways and greedy nature. The Puritan villagers were more than willing to believe that the quarreling among the locals was the work of the devil. Then, in January of 1692, Parris's daughter Elizabeth, age 9, and niece Abigail Williams, age 11, started having fits. They would scream, throw things, utter peculiar sounds, and contort themselves into strange positions. A local doctor would diagnose the issue as being supernatural. Another girl, 12-year-old Ann Putnam Jr., would begin to experience similar episodes, and on February 29th, with pressure from magistrates Jonathan Corwin and John Hathorne, colonial officials who tried local cases, the three girls would blame 3 women for afflicting them. Tituba, a Caribbean woman enslaved by the Parris family, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly, impoverished woman. All 3 women were brought before the magistrates and interrogated for several days, beginning on February 29, 1692. Both Osborne and Good claimed to be innocent, but Tituba confessed, saying, "The devil came to me and bid me serve him." Magistrates even questioned Good's 4-year-old daughter Dorothy, who gave timid answers which were construed as a confession. She went on to describe elaborate images of black dogs, red cats, yellow birds, and a tall man with white hair, who wanted her to sign his book. She admitted that she did sign the book and claimed that there were several other witches looking to destroy the Puritans. This was all it took for the seeds of paranoia to bloom and for accusations of witchcraft to begin flowing in over the next few months. Charges against Martha Corey, who was a loyal member of the church in Salem Village, were of great concern to the community. If it was possible for her to be a witch, then anyone could be. In April, the questioning began to seem much more serious as the colony's deputy governor, Thomas Danforth, and his assistants began to attend the hearings. Dozens of people from both Salem and other Massachusetts villages were brought in for questioning. On May 27, 1692, Governor William Phipps ordered the establishment of a special court of oyer to hear and terminer to decide for Suffolk, Essex, and Middlesex counties. The first accused witch brought in front of this special court was Bridget Bishop, an older woman who was known for her gossipy habits and promiscuity. Can you imagine just being a gossip and all of a sudden you're a witch?
There's not one damn Southern woman that can make it through that.
Right. We call those the mouths of the South.
The mouth of the South.
When asked if she committed the act of witchcraft, Bishop responded, "I am as innocent as the child unborn." This defense was not convincing, and she was found guilty, and on June 10th, she became the first person hanged on what would become known as Gallows Hill. Just a few days after the court was established, Respected Minister Cotton Mather wrote a letter imploring the court to not allow spectral evidence, such as testimony about dreams, visions, etc. But the court largely ignored his request, sentencing the hangings of 5 people in July, 5 more in August, and 8 in September. On October 3rd, following in his son's footsteps, Increase Mather, who was the then president of Harvard University, denounced the use of spectral evidence. It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than 1 innocent person be condemned. In response to these pleas and his own wife's questioning, Phipps prohibited further arrests and released many of the accused witches. He then dissolved the special court and replaced it with the Superior Court of Judicature. I don't know. Which disallowed spectral evidence and condemned just 3 out of 56 defendants. By May of 1693, Phipps had pardoned all of those imprisoned on witchcraft charges, but the damage was already done. 19 men and women had been hanged on Gallows Hill, and Giles Corey, Martha's 71-year-old husband, was pressed to death in September of 1692 with heavy stones after refusing to submit himself to a trial. So this all occurred from February to September, and 20 people were slaughtered. At least 5 of the accused died in jail, and even animals were not safe from this hysteria, with colonists in Andover and Salem Village killing 2 dogs believed to be linked to the devil himself. In the years following the trials and executions, some of the individuals involved publicly admitted their error and guilt, like Judge Samuel Sewall and one of the afflicted, Ann Putnam.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes.
So, you're talking about the dogs. I saw something upon research that one way that they would try and prove that someone was a witch is they would make a cake out of the urine of the afflicted and feed it to a dog. And if the dog died, then that person was a witch.
Yeah. That was brought up in the last podcast series. There was a lot of fucked up shit. And, like, something that they kept reiterating throughout during that time, life was tough and everything was hard.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't have the things that we have now.
Right.
So, like, everything was just shitty. And people would, people would use, this as an excuse to be like, oh, well, I just don't like my neighbor so-and-so.
Right.
So, I'm going to say that they've been doing witchcraft against me.
Right.
And so that's how, and even because the afflicted they were either the daughters of or relatives of Reverend Paris. So, and he was him and his wife were kind of planting the seed and the ideas into these young girls. Which one is that? Amara. Oh, Amara! Come here!
Say hello to everyone.
Say hello, Amara. She's like, I'm in here now. I ain't gonna say nothing.
Fucking rude.
On January 14th, 1697, Massachusetts General Court ordered a day of fasting and soul-searching over the tragedy of Salem. In 1702, the court declared the trials unlawful, And in 1711, the colony passed a bill restoring the rights and good names of many of the accused, as well as granting a total of £600 in restitutions to their heirs, which I don't think is enough.
No, absolutely not.
But it wasn't until 1957, over 250 years later, that the state of Massachusetts formally apologized for the events of 1692. Johnson, the accused woman exonerated... Hold on, I gotta go back and find it because I skipped it because I didn't want to spoil it. In July of just last year, the last person was cleared and officially exonerated from...
Damn.
Yeah. So in July of 2022, Elizabeth Johnson Jr., the last convicted Salem witch whose name had yet to be cleared, was officially exonerated. And she was left out of the 1957 resolution for reasons unknown, but she did receive an official pardon after a successful lobbying campaign by an 8th grade class of civic students. It took a class of 8th graders to get her exonerated.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Somebody your daughter could have done something like that.
Good for them.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Right. It has been over 300 years now since these trials, and with the current climate, I don't think that we as a society have learned a lot since then.
Absolutely not.
But I do feel that we live in a society that is more welcoming for individuals who are perceived as outcasts. And, I mean, my home is, if you're weird or you're perceived as different, you are welcome here.
Absolutely.
So,
but like you were saying, I mean, we've had several throughout history, quote unquote, witch hunts. You had this, and then you had communists.
Yeah.
You've had, in our generation, it's been terrorists.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's been, I think, and it's not even, I don't think, just like terrorists. It's been like the Muslim religion as a whole, because like people perceive, oh well, Muslims did this to us, so it must be all Muslims,
right? And then you've got in more recent times the whole Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, it's, or even like with the COVID pandemic.
Yes,
because it originated in an Asian country. All Asians are bad. So like in other cities, I don't know about Nashville per se, but there has been an increase of hate crime towards Asian individuals because some folks see them as the cause of the COVID-19 pandemic.
How many times in the 4 years that Trump was president, and since then, honestly, have we heard the words witch hunt come out of his mouth? Yeah. I'm just saying.
But like, and even as of late with like Kanye West, for instance, and his spewing, his spewing of hate for the Jewish population.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I don't get it.
I don't. Why? Why spend extra energy
hating?
Why? That's energy that you could save to do something that you love to do.
Right. Put that energy into a hobby of some sort. Something. Don't spend your life being a grouchy bastard who is just pissed off that other people are living their lives and enjoying their lives. Your life is short. You should just enjoy it.
Right.
Spend time doing something you love doing rather than Because, like, honestly, all I want to do is become a little hobbit and live in the woods with my books and my podcasts and just... That's how I want to live my life.
Right.
Growing my vegetables. And I just... Because the society that we live in, I can't do that.
Right.
Because there's no way I could keep the lights on. I can read by candlelight.
Yeah.
But that's what I have. It's kind of ended. I ended on a bummer note.
Hey, this.
What do you have?
I've got. So I'm gonna. We're gonna get weird with it. I'm gonna do hauntings of Salem, and I got this from Ghost City Tours, which was a plethora of information.
Yeah.
Some of the names that you mentioned and stories that you mentioned are going to be restated here.
Yeah. And probably elaborated on.
But with all the traumatic history that this area has, you know that there's got to be some strong residual energies lingering.
Right.
I wanted to, in true weird fashion, take a look into the paranormal activity that still goes on there today. I scoured the interwebs and found some of the most haunted places in Salem. And all of these have been verified as haunted as fuck.
Yeah.
First up, we have Old Burying Point Cemetery. This is the second oldest cemetery in the country, and it was established in 1637. That, in and of itself, screams ghosty as hell to me. Being so old, there are many important figures who use this as their final resting place. This cemetery has been producing supernatural stories for nearly 400 years, though. Those of us who are receptive to these types of energies have visited the cemetery are taken over by sadness. The way I said that makes it sound like I've been there. I've not. It's on the list of places, but. You know, when people who are receptive to this ship visit, they're overtaken by sadness and despair just by walking through the damn cemetery. Yeah. There have been countless EVP voices that have been captured, as well as mists, apparitions, lights, orbs, and shadows in photos. Mm-hmm. One apparition that has been captured and has been proven to belong to Mary Bright Corey, who drew her final breath on this in this realm on August 28th, 1684. She was the second wife of Giles Corey, who was a victim at the trials where he was tortured on September 19th, 1692. Theory is that she is the famous Lady in White. This apparition seems to be quite camera shy, as she transitions into a bright orb or vanishes altogether once cameras come out. One occasion, though, a photograph was timed just right and captured her image. She's even been spotted in the parking lot of the cemetery as well, as in buildings and restaurants nearby. But due to lack of proof, it's completely likely that the Lady in White is actually the spirit of an Irish Catholic immigrant, as they were just buried on the outskirts of the cemetery where this lady is mostly seen. The next one that I have is the Witch House. Now, this one I did a little bit more digging into. This is a 400-year-old house. It's a 2-story black wooden house. It sits at 310 Essex Street in the McIntyre Historic District of Salem. The house was purchased by Judge Jonathan Corwin in 1675. Corwin was the magistrate of the trials. This home remained in the Corwin family until the mid-1800s. By 1718, 8 Corwin lives were taken prematurely by the Corwin curse and tagged this house and crippled the Corwin estate drastically. It's been thought that the structure housed the trials' preliminary exams, but that was later disproven. Contrary to what you may believe due to the name of the house, there have been no witches to live in that house. However, the judge did execute 19 victims of witchcraft charges. So it's kind of tagged with him.
Yeah.
With that being said, what or who is haunting this house? Visitors have reported disembodied voices as well as the feeling of being watched by those who are unseen. This house was featured on Ghost Adventure, the Ghost Adventure show. We've mentioned it before. I went back and rewatched the episode literally last night. It is season 5, episode 2 from what I found on the Discovery app.
I did not rewatch. I did not even initially watch that episode.
That show used to be my shit, but like watching it now, I'm like, God bless.
I was a Ghost Hunters gal.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in a previous episode. But the guys got some very haunting evidence. They actually enlisted the aid of a high school student who is in some type of club or whatever that does paranormal research and stuff like that to help with some of the investigation. I don't think he went in the witch house. They went into another place.
Yeah.
But he, while they were in the witch house, brought in a like actual real life witch and warlock and did like a whole little ritual and got EVP of Mary Bishop, or what was Mary Bishop? Bridget, no.
Martha, are you talking about Martha Corey?
No, Bridget
Bishop.
Bridget Bishop. And they asked her, were you really a witch? And the EVP, you couldn't quite tell if she said, I didn't or I did. But it was very legit. This house does contain some interesting items to help ward off evil witches and even catch them, because of course, if you can't beat them, you may as well join them.
Right.
Inside the wall of the house, you'll find a black shoe. This is said to keep away evil witches. There are also quote-unquote witch bottles inside. These bottles contain urine, hair, pins, and fingernails. They are said to be used as a counter magical tool to ward off evil. However, unlike the black shoe, the bottles work to trap the witches. The urine would attract them, and the pins would the urine would attract them, and the pins would trap them.
Oh.
Another interesting item in this house is a poppet. That's a doll that was used for sympathetic magic spell casting. The doll was found in the nearby home of Bridget Bishop, who was the first victim of the executions.
Yeah.
The next thing that I have, and this one's kind of short, Proctor's Ledge. 19 of the victims of the witch hysteria were hanged at this location and the bodies thrown in the nearby crevice. This location was not established as the execution site until early 2016. So it was wrongfully tagged as you mentioned earlier, Gallows Hill.
Yeah.
Proctor's Ledge is located between Proctor Street and Pope Street and is seemingly quiet. Currently, it's a residential area and overlooks a Walgreens. Reports say that the Lady in White frequents this area. Some state that they have seen her, where others have reported only hearing her disembodied voice. There have also been reports of bright orbs and cold spots.
So they just threw them in the crevice?
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah. Basically, because I think once they were tagged as a witch, they were excommunicated. So they weren't allowed to be buried.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to be buried in the, probably the church cemetery.
Right.
Yeah. That's still... Why do I feel guilty about somebody else's crime?
Right. This last one. This is going to retouch on something that you touched on, but it's getting into a little bit more, detail. This one, I had mixed feelings about it. And I think this is the last one that I have. This one is the Howard Street Cemetery.
Yeah.
This is Salem's fourth oldest burial ground and is home to 1,100 gravestones within 2.5 acres.
Oh.
Yeah. The ground was once reserved for strangers, but later Salem socialites, servicemen, and ship captains were interred here. You can tell it's getting late.
Yeah.
It's currently 11:30. Among those were Captain William Brown, commander of the Crown Shields Brutus. Hold on. Story in here. I'm sorry, I had a random thought. Among those people buried there, Captain William Brown, commander of the Crown Shields Brutus, after he was killed in a shipwreck off of Cape Cod and returned home. Also, marine painter George Ropes, who was a deaf-mute artist, was buried there. But most of the famous and chilling headstones there we need to discuss is Giles Corey. Mm-hmm. You mentioned him. Yeah. Who, we also mentioned this person in the old Burying Point Cemetery.
Yeah.
Giles Corey was buried here in an unmarked grave after he was stripped, strapped to a board, and pressed to death by stone. He was accused of witchcraft by Marcy Lewis, but refused trial. Some say this was an attempt to protect his property by remaining silent so his sons-in-law could inherit his home. Giles was an English-born American who gained his fortune in farming. He lived with his third wife.
Yeah, well, that wasn't too unusual. He died young, and the husband, or the man had to continue on procreating.
Right. Martha, his third wife, Martha, they were churchgoers and large landowners just south of Salem Village. Historically, though, and this is why I was kind of conflicted about the story, however, it is quite tragic. Historically, Corey was not a pious patriarch. He had been tried for murder.
Oh.
The murder of his farmhand, Jacob Goodell, in 1676, because Jacob stole apples. Corey was only found guilty of use of unreasonable force and made to pay a fine. He killed a whole man and got away with it and only had to pay some money.
Oh. Well.
Now, keep in mind that Giles had testified against his own wife just shy of a year prior to his execution.
Yeah, that was the thing in the last podcast series. They were like, yeah, he was just like, oh yeah, she's been doing this.
Yeah, but then he later took back his accusations.
Yeah.
That's what got me. Sorry, I'm adjusting my microphone, guys. She was still hanged on September 22nd. Giles was accused of witchcraft on September 9th. So, just shy of a year. He was accused to have appeared to some women as a phantom, tried to force one to sign the devil's book, assaulting them, and much more. He still remained silent. This, in English law, meant that he would have to endure strong and harsh punishment in the form of being pressed until they enter a plea. The victim's chest would be bound with board, and then a rock or stone would be added until they pleaded or died. Corey refused to enter any type of plea. In fact, some of the only words that came out of his mouth were more weight.
Yeah.
There were also reports that Giles cursed the village during his torture. He shouted allegedly toward the sheriff, "Damn you, I curse you, and Salem." And after that, the sheriffs of Salem have died or resigned for cardiac complications. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, so he was a dickhead, and he murdered somebody for stealing apples, which I don't know. That seems excessive.
Right.
But he was wrongfully accused for something he didn't do.
There is another story that I thought I had added into this, and I didn't, and you mentioned some of it. Let me see if I can find it. It's part of one of the places that I did mention, but I, for whatever reason, cut that portion out of my section of it. Aha, here it is. So you mentioned John Hathorne as a judge.
Yes.
During the Salem Witch Trials. He is the great-great-grandfather of Nathaniel Hawthorne, the famous writer, of the Scarlet Letter.
Is he?
Yes. Nathaniel was so ashamed of his ancestors' actions that he added the W to his surname in hopes of concealing their relation.
Oh, shit. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Nathaniel Hawthorne spent time in prison for being gay. Was it him?
But I mean, think about it. If you look at all the titles and shit of his books,
yeah,
they are. I mean, he's obviously they're relevant. The Scarlet Letter. Let's see, The Minister's Black Veil.
Yeah. No, he spent time in prison for being gay.
Imagine a world where you had to go to prison for being gay.
God, wild times. We've come a long way, but also not very far.
I started to say, have we though? But yeah, I mean, there's so many damn stories. So many damn stories of hauntings, apparitions, curses in Salem that I'm telling you, we will rotate back around.
Yeah.
It will happen.
For sure. And I'd like to really, get into a little bit deeper into the trials.
Right.
Because, I really did just give you a very abbreviated version.
And what I like about it, though, is that the approach that you take to it is more victim-based.
Yeah. Because I didn't want it. I don't know. It just skeeves me out when it's, murderer-based.
Right.
I'm a true crime girly. I always have been. I've watched Unsolved Mysteries. I still listen to the Unsolved Mysteries podcast, and the Netflix version it's pretty good, but they have each season has had a foreign language episode, and I don't mind that at all, but I have attention issues with reading the captions. So I feel like I'm spending the whole time reading rather than paying attention to what's going on. But
I like the way you started off your segment, though, saying the names, because that does in fact keep the
even
names.
Giles Corey.
Right. That does in fact keep the names and their memory alive.
Yeah, because one of my favorite quotes, and I couldn't tell you who said it, is you're never really truly dead until the last person says your name.
Fuck.
Yeah. So that's why, I really try to keep people alive.
Right. That's the whole point of continuing to talk about the ones that have gone on.
Yeah. And that's why, even in, old cemeteries with headstones that are just, deteriorated, I'll make it a point to say their name out loud.
Right.
Even if I have no idea who they are.
Right. But, so, this week, for our local charity things, I have two that I want to mention. The first of which is a local to Salem nonprofit type thing. Mm-hmm. It's called the Woman's Friend Society. This one is it's a positive and often pioneering force in the charitable life of Salem, Massachusetts, since the society's founding in 1876. They're providing affordable housing for women and outreach work of its committees. It's a positive influence for women that need help.
Yeah.
They assist women and girls with, housing, being able to get to work, school, whatever they need. It's just a positive outlook for women of Salem, mm-hmm. which, as we've mentioned in history, has been hard.
Yeah.
Reading into it, I was very, very impressed with their impact on the society there.
Yeah. And it looks like they have a kind of a safe house.
Yes.
Called the Emmerton House.
Yes.
And then they also they participate in committees whose work ranges from knitting hats for premature babies to helping at Brookhouse, which is a historic Salem rest home for older women.
I like it. They're funded by grants and events such as fashion shows or yard sales and tea and coffee and plant sales. I mean, it's all it's going to a good place.
Yeah.
The second one that I wanted to mention, it's not necessarily local to Salem, but it is based out of Salem, and it's the Mental Health and Addiction Network. That in itself is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Mental health and addiction affect everyone. I promise you.
Yeah.
Every person listening to this knows someone that struggles
with
something.
Yeah.
Be it addiction, bipolar disorder, depression, schizophrenia, suicide attempts, things like that, anything. I mean, we're talking even as much as autism.
Right.
Which, thanks to TikTok, now half the damn population of everyone is like, I might have a touch of autism.
Yeah, realizing they might be autistic, myself included.
Same.
Which, I remember, like, I don't know, it's probably like it was in the early aughts, the early 2000s. My dad was like, I think I'm autistic. And, like, autism is, as we've learned, hereditary.
Yeah.
Through the paternal side, typically.
Not necessarily always.
Not necessarily always, but generally.
Right.
So, we share a lot of traits. My granny used to say, you are just like your daddy. And I'm just like, you know what?
She looks like her daddy.
I think we're tism buddies.
Tism buddies.
I just really, really think if I get tested, they'll be like, it's positive.
Not that it's a laughing matter, because it's not, but...
I mean, it would be nice to know.
Right.
Like, I don't want to, be... Because, I mean, as a 33-year-old lady, I already know that I have some ADD problems. But... that's neither here nor there. We're not talking about me. Even though I made it about me.
But yeah, guys, I mean, even if you can't donate, bring some awareness to it. Tell somebody about it. We're just trying to get that word out. And maybe help someone along the way.
Yeah. And the Mental Health and Addiction Network, some of the organizations that they... work with, are for, eating disorders, and they have, a music therapy association, and, attention deficit disorder association, and,
they can help people with, grief and loss.
Yeah. International Society for Bipolar Disorders. So... the Youth Mental Health Project, what I think is super important, because, a lot of times, everybody's so worried about mental illness in adulthood that they're not really thinking about
the trauma that the kids are going through.
Right, and especially, since the beginning of COVID. Kids were all of a sudden stripped out of school.
Right.
And, they didn't have their friends, they didn't have their teachers, in person.
That was the hardest. As a parent that had to sit and watch my child bawl her eyes out because she didn't have that physical teacher in front of her helping her. Mm-hmm. She and I were having to learn it together.
Yeah.
That was awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
I can imagine. I've gotten two degrees online, and that is probably the worst. It was the hardest for me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I would have thrived better in a classroom.
Right. I've always been a hands-on type person, and I have to go through repetitive motion to really grasp it. Yeah. Anybody that I have ever worked with or has had to train me in any way will tell you that I am a question asker, and I'm going to ask you the same damn question 1,000,000 times.
Yeah. I mean, even, because I don't work in my field, but I work at a t-shirt shop, and, I started doing embroidery. That was how I started. And, like, I would say, so I probably trained, you know, for 2 weeks before there was, like, a family emergency, and then I had to work by myself.
Right.
And, like, she taught me well enough that I could operate all of the machines and get everything going and work and not have any breakdowns for, you know, that period of time. So,
but yeah, guys, just kind of help us get the word out. Help if you can. If you can't, just pass it along. But I think that's all we have for this week's episode.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Follow us on the socials.
Facebook,
Twitter,
TikTok,
Instagram.
Email.
wandersofweird@gmail.com.
Send us those spooky stories.
Yes, please, 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 please.
Send them to us.
Send us your spooky stories. Tell us your personal ghost stories. Or
ones that you've heard.
Just some weird shit you've seen.
Maybe send us some stuff that are like, what are they called? What's the word I'm looking for? Like, spooky stories in your community. Urban legends, urban myths.
Yeah, your local legends.
Let us know about that.
Yeah. Have you ever been abducted by a UFO?
Oh, fuck yeah. I want to hear all
Have
those
aliens
stories.
probed you? Where did they touch you? Show me.
Don't show us.
Don't show us.
Don't show us.
Please.
We don't want to see that.
Do not show us where they touched you in our DMs.
I don't want to see buttholes.
Don't slide into the DMs.
I don't want to see the buttholes.
No, because we will rat you out. I will find your partner and I will tell them, he's sending me booty hole pics.
If you don't have a partner, I'm telling your mama.
Yeah.
Or your grandma.
Grandma for sure.
If not, I'm going to tell my mama, and she's going to be disappointed enough for everybody. But thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to keeping on.
Yeah. I'm really excited about moving forward in 2023.
We've got some exciting stuff coming your way.
Yeah.
I know
this is about the only exciting stuff I got going on. Because my life, it used to be real exciting. I used to get into some shit. And now I'm so boring, so...
We're so old.
Yeah.
The 30s have really done it to us.
That's fine. I'm okay with it. I'm settled. I'm nice. I mean, I'm not nice, but I'm kind of mean.
You're solid.
Yeah. I'm living a nice life. I'm kind of mean, especially today. We didn't eat lunch until like 3 o'clock, and I was
hangry.
I was grouchy.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.